The Oklahoma Sooners will have a new leading receiver in 2024. Who's it going to be? We'll discuss next on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase over at Gametime. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. My buddy here is Josh Helmer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. The show is at Locked On Sooners. And the guy making or creating the most buzz out of Oklahoma spring ball from the wide receiver position is a new arrival, one Deion Burks, the transfer from Purdue. A lot of people seem to think that he's going to have a glow up kind of season in 2024. And, with the success that Drake Stoops had operating out of Oklahoma's offense last year, you plug in a guy that maybe is a little more twitchy, a little more athletic, has a little bit more burst to him. And the recipe is there for Deion Burks to cook in 2024.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Is the obvious answer just Nick Anderson, though? He's the guy that went for almost, let's just round up, let's call it 800 yards, 798 if you want to be precisely precise, as Oklahoma's second leading receiver, the team high matching 10 touchdowns, and yet because of, what Drake Stoops did in the slot and what it looks like Deion Burks did at an offense that wasn't as potent as Oklahoma's, and what we're hearing out of the spring, we have to engage the thought, is Deion Burks the guy? So out of those two, probably Nick Anderson or Deion Burks, though, right?
Those would be kind of your leading candidates if we're talking right now, because you expect a little bit more progression from Nick Anderson, though he's kind of dealing with a bit of an injury so far in spring. You expect him to continue to develop and get better and better. And he seemed to have a really nice connection with Jackson Arnold, even just last year in a rotational role. You go back to that Tulsa game and Nick Anderson had 3 catches for 3 touchdowns and over 120 something yards. I think 2 of those touchdown receptions came from Jackson Arnold. They just seem to have a nice feel for one another, and Arnold where to put that deep ball. And you look at it, what I'm expecting out of this offense is to have several guys that will probably have 600, 700 plus receiving yards, because I believe in Jackson Arnold's ability to get the ball down the field. The question for Deion Burks in the yardage department is going to be, how much do they get him down the field in the passing game? Is he going to operate mostly in that 5 to 15 yard area, or are they going to use that speed and get him pushed down the field on some, slot wheel routes? Are they going to use him on some slot corner routes just to allow him to use his speed to get down the field and let Jackson Arnold show off that arm? That's going to be the question, because if he's got an average depth of target that's sitting around 8, 9, 10 yards per target, then it's going to be hard to lead the team in receiving yards. Now he can lead the team in catches at the same time. Drake Stoops wasn't, catching go route after go route after go route last year and led the Sooners in yards, but he also had higher volume of targets. I think the target distribution will probably be pretty evenly split between, whoever it's Anderson or Jaden Gibson on the outside, or Jalil Farouk and Jaden Gibson, and then Deion Burks as well, because you're going to see this team wanting to push the ball down the field a little bit. But if Burks comes in and leads the team in receiving and he's one and done and off to the NFL, shoot, more power to him. And that's good for the offense, because I think it's going to help open things up on the outside. If your slot wide receiver is that dynamic, it forces teams to bracket with linebackers or bring a safety down into the box to help out with coverage. Again, opening things up for your guys on the outside.
The early spring returns have certainly been positive with Deion Burks. And here's a guy that, oh, by the way, with Hudson Card playing quarterback for him, still went out and had 47 grabs, 629 yards, 13.4 per catch, and 7 touchdowns a season ago. So he went out, and that would have ranked 4th on Oklahoma a season ago, and he did that again with Hudson Card as his starting quarterback, not Dylan Gabriel, and not what we hope Jackson Arnold will be. So I do think he, relative even to those numbers, is due for a big-time statistical explosion if he can stay healthy. But the things that you're hearing, the twitchiness, the explosiveness, it sounds great. My question would be, where does Andrel Anthony in your mind fit into all of this too? Because here's somebody that it's easy to forget about to some degree because he got hurt. And yet when he got hurt and left last season, John, he was OU's leading receiver.
My question is going to be, when does he come back? They expect him to be ready for fall camp. It sounds like he's doing some things already, maybe not full go in practice, but he's already working and he's progressing in his rehab and in his return from injury. But that ACL timeline, I mean, that's usually 8 to 12 months. I mean, 8 months would kind of put him around June, 12 months back at the, October, the second weekend of October, Red River rivalry. So it just depends on when he gets back. And again, it's going to be one of those things like, can he get back for fall camp and then get up to speed enough to where he's going to make an impact in the wide receiver rotation? Is it going to be one of those situations where, hey, these other guys are so far ahead of where he's at the time that he's not going to get much significant run early in the season, even if he's ready to go? Because you're seeing Jaden Gibson. I mean, the reports are positive about his development this spring. He's continuing to show off big playability as well. You got Deion Burks. You got Jalil Farouk, who is becoming more of a leader in the wide receiver room. I know everybody wants to write him off, but again, he had a big year last year. I say a big year, a better year and kind of a breakout year for him, after, starting just the first year in 2022, had a much better year in 2023. Yeah, the fumbles you don't want, but he's going to get better from those. So it's a deep wide receiver room, and you're hearing positive reports about guys like Brennan Thompson and Jaquaize Petaway. And I mean, it's anybody's guess right now who the big contributors are going to be and what the rotation is going to look like. But I'm not going to rule out Andrel Anthony at all. I just don't know what his timeline is going to look like and how that's going to impact his ability to get on the field week 1 of the fall.
And we don't know, which true freshman. I've heard some good things about Zion Kearney, that maybe he's got a chance to help OU. You kind of hear some of that buzz. And, some of the other younger names, Jaquaize Petaway from last year's signing class. Does he take a big leap and factor in for Oklahoma? So those are the other unknowns of which young guys are we kind of not thinking about right now that all of a sudden we look up and maybe straight away or midway point of the season are really impacting things for OU. But one thing I think is definitely true. Look, Nick Anderson, Deion Burks, Jalil Farouk, Andrel Anthony, insert a number of other names there. OU's wide receiver cupboard feels like, and you know me, the age-old take a year ago, I'm going to worry about skill position when it's time to worry about skill position at Oklahoma. Having said that, we're in, I think, a much more comfortable position with wide receiver, if we're talking just wide receiver skill guys for OU going into 24 than the way I think a lot of people felt going into last season.
Yeah, it's a much different conversation this offseason than it was last offseason. Yeah, you had Jalil Farouk, who, again, I was sitting here pounding the table for Farouk and buying all the stock and still have a lot of confidence in his ability to be a big-time difference maker for the Sooners. But you didn't know what you were getting yet from Nick Anderson. Jaden Gibson was coming off of a freshman season in which he didn't perform with the opportunities given to him. You added a Brennan Thompson in the transfer portal, but you didn't know what you're going to get there. Your Jaquaize Petaway, you didn't know what you were going to get from the true freshman. Andrel Anthony was a great transfer portal addition just based on the traits, but you still didn't know what you were going to get. But 2023 answered all the questions. And that's a great place to be for 2024 in that you don't really have any questions except for, are there enough footballs to go around to keep everybody engaged and involved in the offense? I mean, it's like a Golden State Warriors team that has Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and who's the other one? I always forget the other one.
Klay Thompson. Thanks. And who else was there? Draymond, and there was another, and Andre Iguodala, a lot of big names that you just have to figure out a way to get everybody involved in the offense somehow. That's going to be Emmett Jones and Seth Luttrell's and Jackson Arnold's concern for 2024.
But what's not a concern, Oklahoma's running back room right now and into the future. The Sooners got a big commitment on Friday from 4-star running back Tory Blaylock. We're going to discuss that, as well as a 5-star offensive tackle trimming his list, including the Sooners. What does it mean for Oklahoma? Coming up here on Locked On Sooners.
When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you've got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs, they've got the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn, it's not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you've got that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within, wait for it, 24 hours. A qualified candidate within 24. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime. Go check out the Gametime app now. Download it for free. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. If you're looking for those last-minute tickets for your favorite matchups, you got to go to Gametime. Major League Baseball is up and running, and now is the time to go get the best deals on the best tickets. But hey, you're looking at getting in on what the Oklahoma City Thunder are doing as they make a run for their first NBA title. Hey, Gametime's got you covered. On April 2nd, $32 to see the 76ers. You want to go check out the Boston Celtics in the TD Garden up in Boston? You can get in for 84, but you want to come back to Indiana? You want to just make a week of it? You get great options on the road at some big time venues. But back here on April 9th, next Tuesday, $8 to see the Sacramento Kings at the Paycom Center. So a lot of great options for you. Go to gametime.co or go download the Gametime app wherever you get your apps. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime. Gametime has the best tickets, the last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed over at Gametime. And all of our recruiting segments here on Locked On are brought to you by LinkedIn, but also go check out the Locked On Sports Today free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube and the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So going into the weekend, we were excited. Everybody was pretty pumped about the possibility of getting Tory Blaylock. It came to be on Friday as the NFL legacy running back. His father, Derek Blaylock, played some years for the Kansas City Chiefs, New York Jets. Tory commits to the Oklahoma Sooners, gives them their first running back in the 2025 recruiting class, and helps Oklahoma bump back up to number 6 in the 247 Sports team rankings and number 2 as compared to SEC teams. So, Josh, big time commitment. The dude's got a ton of bursts. If you've been watching much of the highlights from the Texas track and field scene, you can see what Tory Blaylock has meant to the Atascocita track squad, where they just set the new national record in the 4x100. The dude's got elite speed, just blazing speed. He's going to play running back for Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's great. Speed is good. The speed is good. That's what speed do, and speed do be heading to the end zone on a number of occasions. So Atascocita and the Humble, Texas product, obviously going to be a welcome addition for DeMarco Murray and company. And it continues a trend for DeMarco that, look, he goes and finds, if not, one, then multiple blue chip guys in every single signing class here at OU. So this just the latest for Oklahoma in a long line of talented running back names. Blaylock, you mentioned the speed. I like on tape that I feel like at times he's a pretty patient runner, lets things lets things develop, and then boom, it's north-south with that speed. So I really like, what's on tape from the young man. I think he's got a chance to be a really good one.
Yeah, and I think what's also positive about this is that he has a dad and a brother. His brother played, safety at Wisconsin. His dad played in the NFL. He's a guy that's not going to come in with any misconceptions about what it takes to go work and go play collegiate football. And he's going to go work for a guy like DeMarco Murray, who is going to have a chance to put another running back in the league. And, Tory Blaylock shows great speed, obviously, but he also, I think, shows really good contact balance that, he's not always going down on first contact. And he's able to, like you mentioned, Josh, use that patience of his to allow that blocking to develop, which, as we've seen with Oklahoma, is kind of a key element. The Oklahoma running game really didn't take off last year until Gavin Sawchuk got out there and showed off that patience that's going to allow that running or that offensive line to get to their blocks and get everything set up. But then once those blocks are set up, man, it's off to the races, and it's hard to stop them and slow them down. So a big commitment. It gives Oklahoma 10 back in the recruiting cycle, with a lot of big names still to come. One of those being 5-star offensive tackle Michael Fasusi. Oklahoma has been in the mix for him for some time, but it also seems like he might be trending away from the Sooners. Now, Oklahoma has gotten commitments from Ryan Foje and look to be in a really, really good place for 5-star offensive tackle Ty Haywood. This just might be a numbers game at this point at offensive tackle, as we see Fasusi maybe trending more towards Texas and Texas A&M.
Yeah, would love to have the numbers add up to, both of those gentlemen, along with Foje, coming to Norman, Oklahoma. But yeah, it doesn't sound. I mean, obviously OU's in the mix and they have a puncher's chance with Fasusi, but it certainly sounds like Texas is the sizable leader over Oklahoma, and that maybe A&M's a pretty healthy leader over OU as well. But hey, as long as you still get to make a pitch as you go along, then you're going to have a puncher's chance. And who knows, if you can get Haywood to go along with Foje, then maybe that's enticing enough. Once you start coming down the home stretch, you get those two guys committed aboard, would be big time. And even if it's just those two, John, that's a pretty good little haul for Oklahoma in this class. If you tell me that Foje and Haywood are aboard.
Yeah, if you've been listening to this show much over the last couple months, you know that we love some Ryan Foje. Like I'm not one to toot our own horns very much on this show. I don't do it, but I'm going to brag on us a bit as we watched him when the offer came through and the commitment was coming down, or we were starting to see the crystal balls. We were pretty quick on this guy's not going to stay a 3-star. And it didn't take long before he became a 4-star. And it wouldn't surprise me if he pushes into the top 50, top 30 by the time the cycle is over. He's just that talented. Ty Haywood looks just like another Bill Bedenbaugh type of offensive tackle in the Orlando Brown, Anton Harrison, and Tyler Guyton, just big, athletic, strong, physical players. I think offensive line is going to be really, really good in this recruiting class, or at least going to have a little bit more star power than maybe last cycles did. You look at Owen Hollenbeck, who a lot of people think has a chance to be a really, really premier interior offensive lineman. And then Anthony Ogamoro, out of Elgin. Really, really like his game as well. He looks, again, like one of those, offensive tackles, super athletic dudes that is going to be able to bump inside and play guard or play tackle. He just has great feet work. So while Fasusi is trending away, I really, really like how this offensive line class is developing for Bill Bedenbaugh and the Oklahoma Sooners in the 2025 class.
Yeah, and it's an important one because the scuttlebutt you hear nationally is offensive tackles in this class are particularly impressive. So Oklahoma needs to find its way to the table in that regard. If not a full cleanup at the buffet line, then let's at least make a trip through the Golden Corral line here at least once.
That's a great reference. I've been wanting some buffet food for a while. I was in the parking lot with my son at this little faux dinosaur exhibit, and there was a Chinese buffet just across the parking lot. And my son Bray, who's 3, was like, "What's in there, Dad? And what's that?" And I was like, "That's a Chinese buffet." And it's been a really, really long time since we've gone because my daughter can't go to those because she has alpha gal. Shout out to anybody that's got alpha gal out there. You know what I'm talking about. But I told Brad, I was like, not right now. We don't have the time for it now. But one day, son, one day we'll hit up the buffet. That's just an aside, not offensive tackle talk. He's not going to develop into an offensive tackle. But it's exciting to see what Oklahoma could potentially do at offensive tackle this class.
Yeah, speaking of offensive tackles, any of these said buffets a good way to maybe land an offensive tackle, take them in there again and again and again.
That's right. That's right. If I thought Bray was going to turn into the 6'4", 6'5", we would definitely be hitting up a lot of buffets between now and National Signing Day in like 2038 or something like that. But hey, Oklahoma's got a lot of good things going for them on the football side of recruiting. On the basketball side, it's hard to say what's going on with Porter Moser and his crew. We'll talk more about that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Fire TV, it's your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as that Fire TV stick that you can just plug right into your existing TV, and it'll provide access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV, whether it's opening weekend, which has come and gone for Major League Baseball, or the NCAA tournament final bits and pieces of it. You're going to want to have Fire TV. Plus, Fire TV, they recently created their Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us right here at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, Major League Baseball, you name it. So check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust us on this. Learn more. Visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV.
The Oklahoma Sooners have already seen a few departures in the transfer portal from the hardwood. Otega Oweh was the first, John Hugley followed, and then Milos Uzan over the weekend announced their intentions to enter the transfer portal. 3 losses out of the rotation. I mean, Hugley was a huge loss due to injury late in the season. Otega Oweh and Milos Uzan, they were big-time Porter Moser additions through the, what would that be, 2023 recruiting class and 2022 recruiting class. I can't remember how basketball works. It's always confusing for me, but they were big 4-star top 100 additions and seemed to regress a little bit from their freshman season to their sophomore years. Oweh in particular, he looked really good at times during stretches of both non-conference and conference play, but didn't ever seem to get a lot of consistency and consistent minutes. And then Milos Uzan, you might get some really, really good performances out of him, and then you get a performance where he shot like 1 for 10 or shot 16% from the field. So it's hard to look at these two players and wonder, okay, what went wrong? It's hard not to and wonder what went wrong, because they both have a lot of traits and skill you'd think could help you, but it just didn't seem to be a good fit for what Porter Moser is wanting to do on the basketball court.
No, it just didn't turn into, unfortunately for either, what I think a lot of people hoped when each of these two came in. What would have been the 2022 class, by the way, John, the 2022 Oklahoma commits, a couple of highly regarded guys for Oklahoma, and we saw flashes of it, but we did not see consistent great play, and we didn't see freshmen morph into, okay, these guys are bona fide stars for OU. Milos Uzan and Otega Oweh, both top 100 guys in that 22 class I'm looking at 24/7 Sports. Milos Uzan, number 66 player, 12th point guard nationally. Otega Oweh, number 91 player nationally, number 9 shooting guard. But it'd be, look, you wouldn't say probably that about either of them right now today. Now, look, I'll say this in a little bit of defense of Otega Oweh and Milos Uzan until we get the full bit of information. If those guys go elsewhere, which clearly they're in the portal and the indication is both are done at Oklahoma, but if they go somewhere else and they turn into really, really good players, that will obviously not be it'll be an indictment on OU and Porter Moser and this staff. But I do think that Oklahoma, for its behalf, kind of feels like they found the ceiling for Otega Oweh and Milos Uzan. Time will be the judge of all of that. Now with Hugley gone as well, he's, for me and my money, John, he's kind of the lesser of the three pieces here, just in the sense that he didn't come to Oklahoma as a signee with that top 100 name attached to him. And that's no disrespect to Hugley. It's just the reality of the recruiting situations for each. So now you got 4 scholarships open, and let's see what OU can go do about it in the transfer portal. They need to again. Well, now you got to keep McCollum and you got to keep Jalen Moore. And if you can't do that, that's going to be, I think, pretty alarming again for OU. But if they do, then okay, you've got a nice little foundation here to start. And now you got to go find a Brandon Garrison out of Oklahoma State and insert other names.
Yeah, the kid from Drake is in town visiting, according to Bob Prisbillo of Sooner Scoop. Kevin Overton, that's going to be a big time, guard recruitment, especially if you're not able to hold on to a Javion McCollum. But really, they got to figure out a way to find the players that fit what Porter Moser wants to do, because you look at what a lot of his offense does create, and it does create some open looks, especially from the 3-point line, but Oklahoma's shooters just weren't consistent enough to hit on those regularly enough to keep people from clogging up the paint, and I think that's where things went south for Otega Oweh and Milos Uzan, is that once teams figured out the TCU game in the Big 12 tournament was a great example of this. Once TCU clogged up the paint, those guys didn't really have anywhere to go. And yeah, they were still able to make some shots and actually had some of their better shooting nights in towards the end of the season. But the team as a whole, the guards, the stretch fours, your swing players, they just weren't consistent enough from the outside to keep people from clogging up the paint and forcing Oklahoma to shoot from the outside. So it's just not been a great marriage of talents just yet. In 2022, 2023, they weren't athletic enough. So Porter Moser went to the portal and got more athletic. And then this year they just couldn't shoot well enough. So at some point things have to kind of come together. Obviously they were better in 2023, 2024, but still not quite good enough to make the NCAA tournament. So a big offseason for Moser and his staff on the recruiting trail.
So just in closing here, I'm going to characterize myself as mildly concerned that Uzan and Otega Oweh are leaving. I'm probably more on the concerned into the equation than I am, get him out of here into the equation, because there's some fans that feel that way, right? Like, he wasn't a tournament team again, so don't know how many we definitively need to keep in general. I probably am more on the, would have been better to, keep those pieces around it and keep developing. Where do you find yourself on this development for Oklahoma?
I would love to keep both of those guys because Milos Uzan, for some of the inconsistency as a shooter, he was really, really good at getting to the paint. He was really good at distributing the basketball, I felt like at times, and was a player that was developing some tools in his arsenal. I would like to see him get back in the lab a little bit and work on his shot this offseason to see if that can improve and find some consistency. And then same with Otega Oweh. Again, I just don't feel like it was a great marriage of skill sets to what Porter Moser wants to do offensively. But obviously you want to keep some consistency from year to year so that you can continue to develop and maybe even adjust your offensive system. If you've got Uzan and Otega Oweh coming back, maybe you don't try to run as much motion above the 3-point line as they were trying to run. Maybe you do try to run more pick and roll and utilize those guys' ability to get to the rim a little bit more frequently. So, man, I don't know. I like what they're bringing in Cool Attack and the kid Forsyth, from in-state. I think those two have a chance to be big time players. And I know a lot of people are kind of comparing Forsyth to Bijan Cortez. There's something about Forsyth's attitude and demeanor on the court that just seems a little bit different, and someone who's going to be able to raise his game to meet the level of play that he's going to face in the SEC. And then Cool Attack, you got to have a big. They just haven't been big enough on the inside. Now he's got to gain some weight. Somebody got to get him with Schmitty and get him with Oklahoma's nutrition team and get him Schmitty built. But I like some of the recruiting that they're doing. You just don't want to have all the turnover every single year. It's hard to build chemistry and hard to build, consistency that way. But, you got to find pieces that fit. And in 2023, 2024, especially towards the end of the Big 12 season, it just didn't ever seem to really coalesce like it needed to for Oklahoma to be able to go on a run.
No, and it's just so frustrating because the complexion of things, if you win one or two more games, is probably quite a bit different. Even getting into the tournament and losing a 7-10 game or 8-9 game or, 6-11 game, if you just got in, the complexion would be different. But unfortunately, having not made the tournament 3 years in a row is not a great thing, obviously.
No. And listen, I'll grant, it was a better season. And that's what all you can really ask for is improvement. It's a grind in the Big 12. Obviously the Big 12 wasn't as good as everybody thought it was based on their tournament results, but still it's a grind, and they showed improvement. They got better. Now they got to take another step, and they got to become that tournament team, and not just a one and done tournament team or a one-off tournament team. No, they got to build a program that is consistently in the tournament. There's no reason that Oklahoma shouldn't be one of the best 68 teams in the nation year in and year out and finding their way into the NCAA tournament every single year. And that's Porter Moser's task this offseason. So that will do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms, also on YouTube. So subscribe there, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Also, wherever you get your podcast, go leave us a 5-star rating and review. Help more people find out about the show. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef, myself at John9Williams. Stay tuned this week for our weekly Alex Storako show. We'll have more on the recruiting stuff throughout the week as well. And I'm sure we'll get more spring ball nuggets as Oklahoma progresses through the spring. But until next time, he's Josh Helmer. I'm John Williams. Boomer Sooner.